settings in between. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Ice Cream You Meme. Sorry, we were just in the middle of technical tech talk on our recording software.
Start. That's how we do it. Start a recording in the middle of a conversation and just go from there.
I'm just happy that it started. So here we are. It's another beautiful day to record ISYM.
Another one.
How's it going, JD?
It's going. It's a little okay. Temperature check for everybody. It is. My God, I can't read. It's 57 degrees, but it feels hot, so that's fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess let me temp check here. 59 degrees in Portland, Oregon, 2 months ago from when you're hearing this. So that's a little snapshot of how we're living.
We are living it, but yeah. I don't know. Like, is it because I'm wearing like a sleeve and then like a crew neck?
How many layers you got on right now?
I have the shirt, the undersleeve, and then like my crew neck, so that's 3. So maybe it's my fault. That's
some layers. And you got a very cool looking headband on right now.
Yeah, I got a frog headband. So maybe it is fine weather, and I'm just overly layered, you know?
Yeah. Because I'm feeling Portland very humid. I'm feeling a little clammy today. Like I feel like it's high enough humidity and warm enough that I'm like I don't want to, like, my skin needs to not touch things.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, which is kind of like the standard feeling here during like spring through fall.
Oh my God. Do you have like spring season pollen issues?
We do. I've definitely been like plugged up nose wise and like breathing wise for about a month now, which is it's beautiful. Portland in spring is very beautiful. Like we have a lot of like cherry blossoms that's like big up here, and like various fruit trees and just kind of, plants coming alive. But it's also just like miserable to be outside.
It is, right? You've been to my house before, and you saw the backyard, and it's very green and beautiful.
Yeah. And
I love being back there, but I'm also like assaulted by like the fucking flowers. Just like, hey, we're beautiful, but also we want you to die.
Yeah, they're coming for you.
It's just so bad. Yeah, you want to sit outside because it's so nice, but what I'm taking to doing is like I have goggles for when I paint, but I will sit out there with goggles because I'm like,
that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like so you're not touching your eyes, but also so nothing's like getting in your eyes to make it all watery and itchy.
Right. And it kind of adds like some like Mad Max style to you too.
Yeah.
Because you're like outdoors in the goggles. Like
wearing I'm usually wearing headphones and then like this headband and I have the goggles on, so I look like if anyone can like peek into our backyard area, which I think our back neighbor can, they're probably like, what the fuck are they doing? It's chaos back there, but
it's old fashioned sweaty.
Yeah, like I'm protected. You're not. Like, who's winning?
We're not the same. We are not the same, honey. Please, don't step to me.
But yeah, that is us. It's fun out here.
Yeah. So how are we ready to get into topicos?
Yeah.
Right.
I think I fucked it up so badly. I think it's because like this concept is like, as an explanation, I still don't know how to like do it. Like, if you're smart, you can explain things very easily. And I'm like, I'm dumb. So when I checked because I was like, we aim for a specific number so that we're not
right. Yeah.
But this bitch is 5,000 words.
Okay, so we got another. Mine's. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have a long ep. So.
Oh my God! Unless I speed read, I'm speed reading. Like I can speed read this in my head and just imagine what I'm reading. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, buckle up, folks. I hope you tune in, drop out, whatever the rest of that phrase is.
If you're listening at work, this is gonna wash over you very quickly. You're gonna have fun.
You're gonna enjoy it, and it'll be over before you know it. So.
Yeah, put it on during a work day, as we say. Just do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. JD, we have a new guy. New guy just dropped.
Let's bring in the new guy.
In 2019.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's been some time. He's still new.
Yeah, he's new. That's young. That's a young guy. Wheezing Barnes. So Wheezing Barnes is a dark web hitman whose clear net presence is limited to a single page on the Creepypasta Files wiki. Wheezing Barnes' actual name is listed as Frederick Barnes. I don't know if they're taking notes, but here is two. 1, why does his killer name include part of his legal name? 2, Frederick is a fucked up nickname for Fred. That's not how that works.
That's what Paris is like. Hi, my name's Richard. Full name Dick.
No, fuck off. That's not how it works, man. Come on. According to the pasta, Fred was born in Ohio and is the son of German immigrants. Fred and his sister had a regular upbringing, but Fred felt unstimulated. And when Fred turned 13, he discovered a passion for murder, starting with small animals, moving on to stray dogs and cats, and eventually graduating to people. When he was 16, he discovered the dark web and decided to go into business as a hitman, creating his own website and establishing himself as an independent contractor. Quote, it wasn't long before he introduced Morgan on how to be a hitman. Hit woman. And
diversity win. You just got murdered by a woman.
There you go. How's it feel? I think we could work on the contract killer, hired gun, or assassin, as they're all Jenny Nooch.
Yeah, you're dying. Like, what's going?
It doesn't matter. Like, someone's gonna murder you. Like, yeah.
Someone at your funeral, like, did you know he was murdered by a woman? So
a woman, you'd be like, oh, he looked like a bitch. Yeah, fuck him. Yeah.
And then the women are at the funeral, like, that's feminism.
Yeah, right. Girl boss shit. But Fred and Morgan work together. They're an assassination team, and the 4-paragraph story / post ends with the two trying to kill Slender Man, but then they have to run away. And then the last line is, but that was only the beginning. Which, as far as I can tell, that's not only the beginning, because that's the end of the story, and it was posted 4 years ago. And there's literally no other pages that mention Wheezing Barnes. So our SEO is going to be great this episode.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. We have some added flavor. There's sections in the Creepypasta Wiki. So here's some fun facts. We know, quote, that Frederick is a very laid back and humorous person. He's almost never serious about situations that could mean life or death. He absolutely loves it when someone laughs at his jokes. The only time he is serious is when he fails at a signed contract, which has happened a few times, end quote. He has a trademark look. He wears a thick, fur-lined winter coat with a bulletproof vest and a gas mask. He enjoys using a silenced .44 Magnum, different colored knives disguised as pens, a hidden knife necklace, and a modified combat knife. Modified is a huge theme for Fred. Frederick doesn't fuck with stock shit. He modifies his gas mask to provide infrared vision. He owns a heavily modified car with, quote, increased speed, increased armor, and tinted windows. According to the post, he, quote, literally, unquote, modifies everything. Frederick is friends with other creepypasta figures, including Scarecrow Girl, Bloody Painter, Jane the Killer, and Ben Drown.
Wow.
So he's rolling deep. He's got a good crew. And we've also been blessed with some notable quotes, so we can add a little bit of understanding of who Wheezing Barnes is on his own terms. Quote, despite being German, I find that they're a scarier nationality. End quote. Fred says to Scarecrow before his contract, quote, well, you see, I F Fred when he screws up around Jane. Quote, hey, I'm not just a procrastinator, I'm also a half-assinator. Fred after being insulted by Zero. So naturally I was like, okay, well, let me find the pastas where these quotes come from so I can have a little bit more context. But there's no luck. They've all been wiped from the clear net.
Wow.
The only presence is the wiki. The man's a ghost, So I know that this is pretty spooky. We're dealing with a dark web hitman. And after reading the creepypasta, it's going to be hard to look at, one of our most trusted and admired groups, white guys who like to walk around in winter jackets and gas masks. The same. So yeah.
Oh my God. This is some those TikToks and videos that make fun of Marvel script writing?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
This is the quotes that you gave me. Marvel script writing. This person's gunning for this is Bucky Barnes' sidekick.
He's getting that job. He could get a Marvel job, no problem.
He's getting there.
He understands the assignment, which good for him. I'm obviously putting myself at risk here. If I am murdered by a modified penknife, look into Fred Barnes from Ohio. This goes out to all our listeners. Not Frederick Barnes. That's a nickname.
Okay.
It's an alias. Okay. Fred Barnes is the legal name. But with that out of the way, Wheezing Barnes is fictional. So that's a relief.
We're glad for Ben.
Yes, thank you. The creation of the Creepypasta Files wiki user, the blanked face one, Unfortunately, the account has been inactive since April 2019, so I was unable to contact them. April 2019 was a mere 2 months after the Wheezing Barnes page was created. So is that a coincidence? Ask me again in 2 months. Barnes is beloved in the comment section. Quote, "This is Prale, my fave pasta." Says, "Fuck a fuck is a smurf." Quote, "I think he's pretty cool. I could really get along with this guy." Says Trevor fan. And "It's all right," says McFat10. So
what's going on with these usernames?
It's the Creepypasta Files wiki. It's a wiki comment section. You know, got some creative people here. So how are you feeling so far? That's pretty much the Barnes section is over. That's who Barnes is.
Yeah, it's just about the whole, like, obviously my main one is like the whole like Marvel script writing scenario. The whole, I guess, partnered up with a hit woman, Bonnie and Clyde feels. And I don't know, it was just like the other whole, like, obviously this is like not a real guy, but like the whole like friends, if there was like an inkling of belief that you could have had in this, like the whole friends with other creepypastas was just like, you're not real. You're not real.
It's a fun way to like just kind of add this, like, he's also like really cool and gets along with like everybody, like including ghost haunted cartridges and serial killer. Yeah.
Is that like an attempt to like further bury Wheezing Barnes into like the narrative of others to like prolong his existence, because he's not just like a standalone character. He knows Ben drowned.
He's interlocked with like creepypasta world, even though there's like nothing else exists in the internet that I was able to find that talks about Barnes. Wheezing Barnes, like, it's such a common name too, Fred Barnes, that I was like not finding. There's nothing. This is the only page that's about Wheezing Barnes. So I was like trying to find these little breadcrumbs, and I just couldn't. And I was like, this is all there is. Okay. You
couldn't find any like fan fiction on AO3?
I could not. No.
That's crazy.
Maybe you'd be able. I was unable to.
Let's check later.
We'll check on that later. But you know, like, this is kind of where I moved on, right? Where I was like, okay, well, that's Wheezing Barnes, but the concept of a dark web killer is nothing new, right? Wheezing Barnes has a lot of references to a horror game called Welcome to the Game 2. Barnes is friends with dark web hitman in that game, where you play an investigative reporter trying to save a woman who's being threatened by darknet assassins. And there's no shortage of media coverage about the threat of killers for hire on the internet. So here's a headline from our favorite journalistic institution, the Daily Mail. The disturbing world of the deep web, where contract killers and drug dealers ply their trade on the internet. And here's a quote from the article. Quote, "For those looking to bump off a difficult acquaintance, all they have to do is enter the deep web, also known as the dark web or the undernet, and search for hitman for hire," end quote. Or this completely unsubstantiated claim, quote, "Some hitmen seem to offer others the chance to profit from their killing by allowing users to bet on when a victim will die by putting money in a pool. The closest guess takes home the pot," end quote. I don't know where they got that from.
They have like the Wheel of Fortune, or what is that one where they guess like how close the price is to the object?
The Price is Right.
Yeah, the Price is Right for this shit. That's very fun.
Yeah, pretty much. You're just like, if you go over, that's not really what you want to do, though, right? Like, but that's also like the concept of like, I think Deadpool, like that's why Deadpool is called Deadpool, is like the idea of like a hitman betting pool.
Oh.
So I think that could be where they got that from, was like, this is a really sick, like Deadpool's, informing there.
Oh my God.
Or the legend of Deadpool. And we got another article from the Times, the British one, not the real one. "Murder in the dark web, how contract killers ply their trade online." Or this headline from the Daily Star, "Exclusive, hackers, hitmen for hire, and torture rooms, the sinister dark net exposed." And then YouTube is also full of videos with titles like "Interview with a real deep web hitman" with 523,000 views, "Interviewing a dark web hitman gone wrong" with 672,000 views, or "Why the dark web hitman turned on his own," which has 583,000 views. These aren't Serbian dancing lady numbers, but there's clearly something appealing about the idea of, convenient murder, making murder as easy as having your Jack in the Box munchie meal delivered to your house at 3 a.m., right?
Oh my god, I'm not gonna watch it, but I'm interested in like the interview gone wrong. Like, what happens? Do they get fucking murdered or some shit?
I didn't watch it because I was like, I think I know that this is going to be clickbait.
Gone wrong, 3 a.m. drama.
Right, it's gonna be like, oh my god, what is he gonna say, guys? And it's like, I'm not here for this. I'm looking for the real stuff. So stories about dark web assassinations have been floating around since the early 2010s, and we can get into a couple of cases here. Trigger warning: this is entering the true crime segment a little bit. We've got a doctor in Spokane, Washington, who paid $2,000 in Bitcoin to have a colleague's hands broken and $60,000 in Bitcoin to have his wife kidnapped and injected with heroin to force her to drop divorce proceedings. When caught, he claimed that he was really trying to hire the assassins to kill him, which is not a great excuse. We've got an IT engineer from Beverly Hills, California, who paid $13,000 in Bitcoin to have a woman he went on a couple of dates with murdered. And then there was a nurse in Woodridge, Illinois, who paid $12,000 in Bitcoin to have her boyfriend's wife killed.
What's going on?
Yeah, so people took the advice of the Daily Mail and looked for hitmen for hire, and they were like, "Oh yeah, great, this is a good deal." And in all these cases, there's a couple of through lines I'd like to flag. One, nobody died or got their hands broken.
Mm-hmm.
Two, Bitcoin was always used, which ties into the real through line that these people just got scammed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a scam that seems to work on even the most hardened and internet savvy among us, like Ross Ulbricht, the founder of Silk Road, which is an actual dark web marketplace, or was mainly used for buying drugs, I hear, allegedly.
Allegedly. TM.
Allegedly.
Trademark.
I wouldn't know. Ross Ulbricht, who is now serving 2 consecutive life sentences for crimes related to running the website, also had charges against him related to a murder-for-hire conspiracy. Those charges were eventually dropped, in part because he was already serving multiple consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for nonviolent offenses. But we do have some transcripts of conversations with Ulbricht, who went by the username the Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR, and someone who was presenting themselves as a hitman and going by the name Red and White. So the conversation starts out normally enough. DPR and Red and White are discussing Ulbricht being blackmailed by a user named Friendly Chemist, who was threatening to publicly leak Silk Road's users' private information. The idea of eliminating Friendly Chemist came up, and it seemed from the transcript that there was an initial transfer of around $150,000 in Bitcoin from DPR to Red and White. But before anything can happen, the conversation turns to Tony76, aka Nipple Suck Canuck.
Okay. Okay.
And you see what we're dealing with. Dangerous men. A drug dealer who had scammed Silk Road users out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It seemed like a decent idea to eliminate him as well, and more Bitcoin was sent to take out Nipplesuck Canuck and his 3
fucking name.
Yeah. All told, it seems like Ulbricht sent $650,000 in Bitcoin to Red and White to eliminate these 5 people, and he mentioned having previously paid $80,000 for another hit. No murders ever happened. There's no evidence that Red and White, who was also arrested, was a contract killer or capable of working with crime syndicates to ensure that the hits were pulled off. And the $80,000 previous hit that Ulbricht mentioned was a setup by the feds. So nobody died there.
Ooh.
This didn't stop the prosecution from framing Ulbricht as a violent individual with no limits who was willing to kill anyone, do anything. Here's a quote from federal prosecutor Sharon Turner from the closing arguments in Ulbricht's trial. Quote, "The click of a mouse, send $500,000, $500,000 worth of Bitcoin, wait for a picture of a dead body. Thank goodness it does not look like any murders occurred. Thank goodness that this man's power trip was stopped before he managed to connect with a true hitman through his criminal website." Now, I have a slightly different read on this. So if Ross Ulbricht, who was more plugged in on the dark net than almost anyone, could not get in touch with a real hitman, what hope does any regular scrub have?
Yeah.
It seems like most dark web assassination businesses are scams. I don't have time to discuss rentahitman.com. That's a thing. That's a sting. It's Look, if you fall for rentahitman.com, you're beyond my help, and you probably don't listen to podcasts about memes.
You really don't.
But let people know it's a scam. Don't. It's a Fed sting. No, we're talking about the heavy air quotes here, real deal dark web assassination websites. Because like a lot of heinous shit on the dark net, it doesn't really exist in the way that we think it does. But there's a lot of sites on the dark net that claim to represent killers for hire.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, JD, I'm going to walk us through some screen caps of assassination websites. And as a reminder to our listeners, the PowerPoint will be available on isYmpod.com. And we do have a video feed on Spotify and YouTube as well.
Yeah, baby!
Let's get into it.
PowerPoint! Right. It's wild. Like, okay, so you don't want to rent a hitman. Why would rent a hitman be like your jam? Like, it'll be like a website like buydrugshere.net.
Right. Yeah, like people, I think it's like people are just like, oh yeah, you can find anything on the internet, and then it's just like that. Multiple people have fallen for the renthehitman.com thing. And I think there was like it's on both sides too, where there's like people that are like, I want to hire a hitman, and then there's people that are like, I'd like to offer my services as a hitman, and it's either way. It's like, don't do that. Just don't.
Oh my god.
So let's see. See how this works. There we go.
You would have put a hit on.
Here's my slideshow. So first up, we have Murder Incorporated Hitman, Exterminate Anyone. And, you know, let's take a minute, mostly to appreciate the design. We have multiple clip arts of guys with guns pointing guns at the screen.
What? Okay.
Yeah, what are you thinking? Murder Incorporated Hitman is the deep web eBay of crime.
Not real, right?
Not really.
Okay, because I was like, this looks like an Adult Swim big.
Yeah. You're gonna see some themes here. Here we have Mara Salvatrucha Marketplace, so they're claiming to represent MS-13, and we have a singular picture of a MS-13 gang member, and then more clip art.
Why would they have a website?
Well, you know they're diversifying their business. You know they're really trying to get out there.
Like a very obvious website.
Yeah, and like
killing me.
That's designed with like angel fire, like from like it's the use of clip art is pretty egregious.
It's so good though.
I mean, you'd go for this, right? You'd be like, oh, I've heard about them on Fox News.
Yeah, because it says right there, this is an easy and secure way.
Yeah, right.
Oh my god, that's what I need.
These guys aren't fucking around. These are organized crime.
They're not.
This is the organized people. And then third up, we have Base of Mafia, hire a killer or a hacker. They've got more clip art of a gun. They have my favorite thing is the world map here, where it's like just little like clip art guys standing on different continents with guns.
This is killing me because it looks like, you know how like you're playing a video game and then like there's an in-game computer and then you try to access a website and this is what the website looks like on the video game.
It's some GTA shit, right? Like
yes,
this is exactly.
I was like, this is on fucking GTA. Like you pulled up a website and I was like, Ben is about to be like, and this is fake. This is on Grand Theft Auto.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's killing me.
Here's some gameplay from you. Yeah, and it's got the Godfather font and everything too. It's but this is where it gets a little serious. So I'm going to show you a picture of one of the Base Mafia hitmen. Now, I need you to describe what we're seeing here.
Oh, come on! Okay, for everybody who's not looking at this right now, this is the direct JD description of what it is. So basically, this person is like in a dark room. I'm assuming it's like a Barnes sort of thing because of like the panels like with light seeping through in the back. They are not wearing, but they have like a button up on and it's not buttoned up all the way.
It's not buttoned up at all. It's completely open button.
It's completely open, chest out, just to let you know the hitman that you're hiring doesn't need a gun necessarily. They can probably
He's got abs.
Yeah.
Like you see this? Yeah.
And they have a beard. They have this thing going on. Their eyes very helpfully, so they don't get caught. They're sort of like mosaic out.
Right. Yeah. Because that would be what lets people know.
Yeah. You don't want your hitman to be easily recognizable. And they've got a cap on, and they're very like. This actually feels more like like a calendar. Like, this is the hitman's calendar. Like, if they're having a very bad like month, they're like, maybe
yeah,
we
right.
should
They
release
have
a calendar.
to diversify their income streams by offering like softcore porn calendars.
Yeah, like this is wild.
It's a shirtless hunk ostensibly, and it's pretty clearly like a clip art guy that they chose to censor his eyes out, which is just, it's great. I love that. This is one of my favorite things I came across.
And they're also not practicing like gun like safety though, so maybe you don't want to like hire this guy if you know this guy is not Willie with his gun.
Super reassuring the way he's I'm not convinced that he's a killer. Yeah, but that's a couple tastes of some websites for you. And let's keep Base of Mafia in mind, because we know a lot about Base of Mafia and how they work because of the research of a guy named Chris Montero, who is a computer systems administrator and does a lot of online investigations in his personal time. Montero runs the r/deep web subreddit and is really big into wikis. In particular, he likes contributing to Rational Wiki, debunking urban legends and internet myths. So shout out to you, Chris Montero. He wrote the article on online assassinations for Rational Wiki, and in the wiki article, he broke down the sites into either being markets where you can go and, you put in the target information and pay in Bitcoin, and then they take out the target, right? Or prediction websites where you can contribute to funds to assassinate public figures, like Assassination Market, which describes itself as Kickstarter for murder. So they got some other options for you. And Montero reached the conclusion that all of these websites were either scams or run by law enforcement. And after he finished the wiki page, he came face to face with the Base of Mafia. Not literally, but on the wiki page. It was edited anonymously to correct that all dark web assassination websites are scams, except for Base of Mafia, who are like super legit and dangerous. Like, seriously, bro, like, don't fuck with them. Like, for real, okay?
Don't do it.
Now, Montero figured they were scammers and critiqued their website on his blog. And despite the website including warnings about, scams on the internet claiming to be hitmen, Montero was not convinced by the website, which also claims that you can join the Albanian mafia as a hitman through the website. So he tore into the website on his blog, and Montero received an email from someone calling themselves Yura. Quote, "Would it be possible for us to pay you for a true and honest positive review? Our site is a marketplace, and we have many registered gang members. We are not like other hitman sites where they only have one team. Let me know if we can prove to you that we are legit."
This is killing me. Like, what is the implication of like, let's give you a free true anonymous review. We'll do a hit for you for free so you can prove that. Is that what it's doing?
That's basically what it's doing. Yeah, we'll get into it.
You're killing me.
Yeah, you're on where it's going. So Montero responded with a series of questions, ranging from, why are you pixelating the faces of stock photo models? And then like more tech stuff, like why aren't you recommending the use of Bitcoin tumblers or privacy-focused Linux operating systems like Tails? And Yura answered all of these questions and maintained that Base of Mafia is very legit. So then Yura wound up proposing that, anyone you choose, we'll beat them up and we'll prove it. And he offered a $50 monthly stipend to run banner ads for Base of Mafia on Montero's blog.
Oh my God.
Montero was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then Yura's tone turned a little less friendly. Quote, "I would suggest you to remain disguised as a deep web lover and to be neutral to our website until satisfied or dissatisfied customers start bragging or complaining about us. Unless you do that, we will pay some cheap freelancers to fill articles and submit posts and comments claiming you are an undercover cop with a bunch of reasons and logic. And we will search for other people and reviews where you discourage people from using the deep web. We will claim your purpose is to discourage people and that you could not look well into your superior's eyes." There's a lot of grammar and spelling issues in the message, but
with a bunch of logic, we're going to take you down.
We're taking you down with facts and logic, man. Don't fuck with us.
That's crazy.
You're me's business. And Montero naturally posted the entire exchange on his blog, pirate.london, and continued to mock Base of Mafia, right? But a few weeks later, he received a video which featured a handwritten note saying gang members for Base of Mafia on Deep Web, dedication to Pirate London, 10/16/2016. After showing this note, the footage cut to a burning car, and then the note was held in front of the burning car. And Montero, at this point, he's a little shook. He's kind of like, okay, I'm going to contact law enforcement. And he contacted the Metro Police in London, and he contacted the UK's National Crimes Agency, the NCA, but they were really no help. And he resolved he was going to figure this out himself. So
oh my God.
It's getting crazy, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so he set up an account on Base Mafia as a customer, and he requested a hit on one Bob the Builder. And upon doing so, he realized that he was given a numeric ID, and he noticed that there's kind of a major vulnerability. He could see every other user's interactions by combining numeric IDs with the Base Mafia URL. So he downloaded all of the conversation logs, and he discovered that it is a scam. People would request hits. Eura would tell them how much it would be and request an advance to prove that the customers could really afford the hit. The customer would pay the advance, and then something would come up. The hitman would get arrested, the weapons would get seized, get appendicitis, whatever. The solution would then become, well, we have better assassins. Don't worry, we're connected, but they're more expensive, and they need a bigger advance.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes this would go on for months. Sometimes people would pay once, but that's how it worked. But it turned out that this was a little bit more than a standalone scam site.
Mm-hmm.
Eura had been hard at work. Montero found that the burning car video and other staged videos to prove that the Base Mafia were legit were created by a user who had signed up to be assassin. So they were tasked with creating content, right? Something much more degrading than being assassin.
An influencer house.
Yes, I'm a hitman influencer. So this guy he'd make videos of burning cars. He'd have videos of guys flashing guns and make like stage fake murders. And these were all to make Eura and the Base Mafia look legit.
This is deep.
Yeah, and then Eura also had an elaborate system of small domains on the ClearNet, which directed to the Base Mafia website, right? And we're kind of disgusted and like, oh, these guys are real, like they're legit. And like Reddit users that would be like, Base Mafia, like all the other stuff is bullshit, but Base Mafia, they're pretty scary, man. Right. And then he also invested a lot in SEO and marketing. So, Montero, at this point, he's figured out that it's a scam. He's figured out kind of the business model. And he decided he's going to team up with somebody else to basically take down Base Mafia.
This is crazy because I wrote, like, as a joke, Eura is a marketing genius. But Eura is a kind of
Eura is a marketing genius. Like, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, Eura's like on top of it. So, like, the user that Montero teams up with goes by Judge Judy. Judge Judy and Montero.
All right.
They team up, but they're not the only ones going after the Base Mafia. In April 2016, there's a hacker named BRSPD who used a malicious file in the target upload photo section, right, of the communication to pull all the chat logs, usernames, passwords, and admin information. So using this information from the leak, Judge Judy and Montero were able to hack into the website, get into Eura's Gmail, and eventually they obtained the cryptographic keys needed to control the domain. And they shut the website down.
Oof.
And they left users with the message, Base Mafia has closed for business. After 6 months of scamming criminals for their Bitcoin and stealing over 100 Bitcoin, $65,000, the site is closed. No one was ever beaten up or killed, end quote. And you might think that's it, right? They've taken down the website. But we have more to go.
Oh my God. This is crazy. Because obviously scams are getting mad smart these days, right? They can do dupe websites, they can do Wells Fargo websites, like the Nike outlet websites, and they're kind of smart. So this is like that kind of like genius kind of smart thing. But okay, do you feel sorry for the people who are like, I got scammed because I tried to have someone killed? Like, for the most part, like,
I mean,
no,
not really. Like, that's the thing is, like, it's like a good scam. Like, Eura is very smart because it's like, these people, what are you going to do? You sent over $13,000 in Bitcoin to murder your wife.
Yeah. So you're not going to be like, hey, Better Business Bureau, I got this guy, like, I tried to buy like some Nikes for like $2 for like 12 of them and I got scammed. But you can't be like, Better Business Bureau, I tried to have my wife killed.
Right, yeah. It's like, come on, get him down. I'm taking his rating down. Like, yeah, it's like, whatever. What are you going to do? There's no comeback for you. And I don't feel bad for somebody that wanted someone to get murdered.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not. Yeah, so there's like that level where it's like, yeah, this is a solid scam.
Mm-hmm.
But Montero had concerns about this, right? He kind of noticed that, like, that the other side of that is that, there's people that want people murdered, but that means there's also people that somebody wants dead.
Yes.
Right. And that was the concern that Montero had, that these were ostensibly kill lists, and the Besa Mafia had these information on people that, somebody wanted them dead. And tragically, we know of at least one case where that did happen. So after the leak, the FBI approached Amy Allwine and her husband to let her know that a user by the name Dog Day God had paid $6,000 on the Besa Mafia website to have her killed. 6 months later, Amy Allwine was murdered. It was quickly discovered that her husband was Dog Day God. He's also like a pastor and like an IT guy. And he was found guilty of first-degree murder and is now serving life in prison. And when Montero heard about the murder, he felt like this is like a sense of urgency, right? Like what he had been worried about really happened. And it's not just like an internet game anymore. So he reached out to the NCA to ask them to please take the fact that people had paid thousands of dollars to have other people killed seriously. Right? And the NCA was like, oh, yeah, we'll look into it. And then a few weeks later, Montero was arrested for incitement to murder in connection with the Besa Mafia.
Hello?
So this is where my mind was like, bam. Because while Montero was taking down the site, Yura was making good on his threat to create a Montero misinformation campaign.
Oh my God, Yura!
Yura had his network of blogs, social media influencers, and they created the narrative that Montero was behind Besa Mafia, that he was the creator, the administrator, and that everything was his fault, right?
That's crazy.
It's a crazy move. That's some Machiavellian shit right there.
Oh my God. It's a drama. This is a movie.
It is. So Montero spent 2 days in NCA custody because the agent that he had talked to previously and tried to warn didn't do anything. They didn't follow up with other agents. They didn't tell anyone that, hey, this guy Montero is like on this and he's trying to cooperate with law enforcement and get attention, right? They were just convinced. They were like, yeah, well, why are all these websites saying that you're the guy, right? They tried to, they searched his apartment and they were like, we see that you own a copy of the video game Hitman. So clearly you're behind this.
I own a copy of Stardew Valley. I'm not out here as a farmer.
What are you growing? What are you growing in that yard of yours, Gigi? This is very...
Spring onions!
So, finally they looked through his computer and they found the wiki that he had built tracking all the transactions and activities on the website, and they let him go. And the NCA at that point was like, okay, I guess you're kind of like legit. Like, you're the real deal.
I guess.
Right. They took the warnings more seriously then because of the wiki. And several people were arrested on conspiracy to have, the murders committed in the tribes. Montero thought that would be it. And he'd assumed that Yura had been arrested when he heard about the Crime Bay arrest in Bulgaria in 2017. He was just like, oh, that's probably where Yura was. But one day, Montero got an email from Yura claiming that Montero was responsible for Amy Allwine's death and probably countless other deaths that would have been prevented if Montero had just let the scam continue. And Montero's like, fuck that. So now he's back in, right? But now he found it wasn't just one site. There was Cosa Nostra, there was Sicilian Hitman, there was Camera Hitman, there was Nadrogeta Hitman, there was Yakuza Mafia, Bratva Mafia. That's just a couple, right? Yura's business had really blossomed. And now he knew, I'm going to have all these websites. But they still had the same vulnerabilities, and Montero was able to track and collect data on all communications on these sites, right? So Montero, again, he approached the NCA, and they had lost interest. They were just like, well, whatever. Okay, we know you were right that time, but it's probably not going to. Yeah. And they told him, we're not going to monitor the situation, and they didn't feel like it was a credible threat. And they also warned him, they're like, you better not break the law. You don't do it. Kind of mind your business, man. So Montero set up Google alerts for all the names of targets from the network of websites, and unfortunately, there have been times when the alerts have gone off. But it has never been a dark web hitman. It's always been people who knew the victims and wanted them dead. So that's more or less where we're at. And it sucks. Montero continues his crusade against online assassin scams. Yura changed his name to Barbosa and maintained that he was preventing crime. That's always been his side of the story, is that he's scamming criminals, it's like harmless, right? And probably because they pay him, they probably won't do the murders, right? That's his story. But yeah.
My thought is like, okay, if you're like willing to pay someone to kill someone, and then you feel like it's not getting done, like the literal thing of like, if you want something done, do it yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, right. You're like, I'm not going to lose more money to this and trust that no one's going to get it done. I'll do it myself.
Right. I don't buy that that's like a dissuasion thing where it's like, well, I paid $13,000 to have her murdered and nothing happened. So that's it. Like, that's not going to resolve it. You're just going to be like angrier because you're like, I spent $13,000. I got scammed.
Exactly.
And then and that's unfortunately seems to be what occasionally happens. And then sometimes, and Yura has also claimed, he's like, oh yeah, I'm actually working with like people on the right side of history. But according to BRSPD, who again leaked all the information, the admin information. So right when he first kind of targeted the website, he was like, hey, Yura, do you want to make this website a little bit more sophisticated so that we can actually try to catch criminals, right? Rather than making this paper-thin scam site to siphon Bitcoin from people. And Yura was like, no, just leave me alone. Let me do my thing.
Oh, shit.
So he's a scammer. He doesn't have an interest in, taking down the bad guys, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. Right. But in 2022, Romanian law enforcement announced that they had arrested 5 men for running a scam network. So it looks like Yura, Barbosa, and 5 other guys have been arrested and will face some form of criminal charges. And they seem to be the ones behind all this network of scam websites, right?
Okay.
But Montero feels kind of dissatisfied with this. Quote, it's an international law enforcement operation, took down these criminals, but when will they ever proactively investigate the thousands of names on the kill list? Mm-hmm. Right? End quote. Yura showed that the best course of action was to spread like weeds, and other scammers online have done exactly that. And there are still plenty of dark web assassination websites. And while all of the assassins may be as fictional as Wheezing Barnes, the risk to the people who are targeted as victims should be considered real.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's more or less where we're at. And it's just like we need to take the kill list should be taken seriously. I don't feel sympathy going back to it. I don't feel sympathy for people who get scammed. I do feel sympathy for people who someone wants them dead. And whether they're like trying to go through somebody or going to do it themselves, either way, that's like not a good position to be in. Yeah,
because that is real. Like if you have this list, you know it exists, and then you can try and check on it. Are these people alive?
Right.
X died, and then some people thought it was under mysterious circumstances. Can we do something about that? And this is like free work, right? Because you're like, I just have this list and I need to cross-check it. Are they alive? Notify them, blah, blah, blah. Keep an eye on them. But like, what is the idea? What is like the non-motivation to like not do that? Of like, here is like some free work that you could look into instead of just like, I'm gonna go do this. I don't know. Is it like, it's gonna be a strain? We're gonna have to look for all of these people. Da da da. I don't know. That's good.
I mean, that's the thing too. Is like all the work is done for you because there's guys like Montero that they're exploiting these vulnerabilities and are just like, I have all the information. Look, this is a list. This is how much people have paid to have their wife murdered. This is how much somebody has paid to have their boyfriend murdered. And there's been cases where there's been multiple cases where these people that are on these kill lists wind up dead. And it's like, you should be proactive about this. Like this, you should take this as a credible threat because it is. If you're willing to pay $13,000 to murder somebody, why wouldn't you be willing to do it yourself? Why don't we look at that as like a serious threat?
Yeah, that's like so serious. I think this is like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is fucking absurd. And the idea of like being like, hey, don't break laws, try to figure this out. Like, what? I don't know.
Be on good behavior. Like,
these guys, you're gonna be like, hey, who's the lesser? You're gonna be like, well, don't try to look into them. This is crazy.
Yeah, mind your business, Montero. It's like it is real like movie shit where it's like you're the one that's gonna get in trouble if you're messing. And it's like.
And then he does. Like, that feels like such a movie turn of like, oh, it all gets turned on you and you're being accused of it. Like, that's so crazy to me. My God.
Yeah. So it's a crazy story. Montero's out there fighting the good fight. Big shout out to Chris Montero and the other hackers and activists that have kind of taken on this project because law enforcement internationally is not really.
As they do.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is crazy. This is crazy good. Like, obviously all your stuff has been like fantastic, but this one is like, because I don't do true crime that much. So like, I don't know if this is like, oh, this is spicy and there's like spicier stuff, but like, this is like, holy shit.
When I heard about when I was like, okay, because, we're not really true crime people, neither of us are. But when I was like, Montero got put in jail because Yura had paid this like big misinformation campaign, I was like, this is the most like tech savvy scammer shit out there. Also, I do enjoy scammer shit.
Yeah.
Scam true crime is something, because I'm very gullible. I think we've discussed. I'm like, I want to know what people are doing out there so I don't fall for it.
Yeah. In terms of true crime, the scam plot, the MLM stuff, like I will listen to that because I'm just like, how do people avoid this? Because I think of like all the people that I know who were like doing Avon, who are doing like Road and Fields, and I'm like, oh, this is. And now I'm like, oh, wait, that was an MLM. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
So, like, the monetary true crime, that one I'm, like, down with. Right?
100%. Yeah. Because it's like, I feel like that's the thing where it's like, you're not, like, we're always like, we're not immune to propaganda. You're also, like, not immune to scams. Like, there's always going to be a scam that will work on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That was very good. Like this is the first time my notes have been like legible. Hold on, like they are like legible. They're instead of like.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Oh my God! Yeah, that was sick. And then that's very cool because yours is like tech savviness and like tech language and all that stuff, and mine too. We have a little connection. You went kind of quant with it, so I'm excited to get into it. Yeah. I like this one because this is like you know me, I like to like run off and be like, I'm the biggest dummy in the whole world. I've never read a book in my life, right? But this is the aspect of like things that like I do actually know like quite a bit about, and then like I'm happy to talk about it in a not mind hurting way. But I just want to warn you that like I love the thing where like you can explain things very easily and quickly to someone like this kind of thing, but AI, artificial intelligence, is still not the thing for me to be able to do that. I use some language that I'm going to very much explain, but I've linked to so many things in the script that you, listener, and Ben can like go through, and obviously me and Ben are going to probably like talk after this, and if he has any questions, just like feel free to let me know. And then once again, we have an email, we have DMs, we have like, we'll open up the question box or something. If you have any questions, follow up. Like if you don't know how to look it up, I will answer them to the best of my abilities or lead you something. Yeah,
and I'm like the biggest dummy on earth, so I will try to stand it for all of us. I'll be a representative.
Yeah, just ask away. Like we've said at the beginning, this is going to be a little hefty on the AI side, and then I try to soften it up with some artsy fartsy. Hey. Okay. So several episodes ago, I covered Amigara Fault. And if you listen to it, I intended to cover something else, but got a little too scared. I chickened out of the topic because visually it scared me a lot. I won't say that I'm not scared of it anymore because like I really had to zoom away from it when I was like looking at the pictures and like put some distance between it and my face. So today I'm going to get over it and I'm going to cover AI Loab and finally get it done so I don't have to think about it ever again.
Yeah, round two,
let's go. Like last time I was like, delete, just kidding, no. Okay, on September 6th, 2022, Twitter user Steph Mash Swanson, or as we will call them, Super Composite, posted a thread about what they described as an AI cryptid. Although it was posted on September 2022, it looks like Loab to Super Composite and a friend has been around since like May, April-ish 2022. So like, hey, one year anniversary.
Oh,
let's go. Okay.
Finger on the pulse.
Yeah. But yeah, it's based on tweets that they had called around May, April at the time as a Loab Angel mind freak.
Okay.
Marvel form. My brain, Chris Angel in here.
Chris Angel, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So it isn't specified where Super Composite generated Loab, but based on the GIFs, I'll say it both ways, and the 4 square images posted, I personally think that it could have been Midjourney, which is something we're going to talk about in a little bit, right? Here's a quick rundown of how Loab was born, according to Super Composite. Super Composite created a logo that was the result of a negatively weighted prompt using Marlon Brando. I promise to all have. We'll talk about these terms later, right?
Oh, please, yes.
And then they did a negatively weighted prompt based on that logo. And what a result. Loab was born. Loab visually is a light-skinned individual, possibly, with brown hair that could have been like balayage, if you're familiar with that, or something. Loab's cheeks have markings on them, possibly due to a skin condition like rosacea, according to Supercomposite, and I won't disagree with that because I'm familiar with that whole skin pocket situation. And then Supercomposite began to combine Loab with a whole bunch of other generated images, first using their friend's generated image that is a hyper-compressed glass tunnel surrounded by angels in the style of Wes Anderson. Through this, a series of incredibly gory and disturbing images came through. Supercomposite notes that the imagery was downright fucked up, saying, I don't feel comfortable posting the most disturbing ones, borderline snuff images of dismembered screaming children. So if you put that in your brain, that's fucked up. You don't want to see that. And OP notes that despite combining Loab with a whole bunch of other images, Loab was very much a persistent image and will always come through. Loab, even if she's not there, her face, her features would come through on someone else's face. It would disappear in a whole bunch of other image combinations and then come back at a later point. They go away. They still show up somewhere down the line, one way or another, through their cheeks showing on someone's face or their downright sad expression coming through the background. Forget the persistence of time. This is the persistence of Loab. The name, according to Supercomposite, is based on text that's on one of the images that they generated, and it's basically like LOB, R, a bunch of letters. So you think of like, prove to me that you're not a robot, like those kinds of like
some CAPTCHA thing. Yeah, okay.
CAPTCHA, that kind of thing, right? I linked the whole thread in the script, but I will have to warn you that if you've never seen Loab but would like to, you'll need to know that despite some Supercomposite choosing the most mildest of the photos, there are still some very slightly disturbing images that can lean towards like dismemberment, gore, and extreme body horror. And to put it very kindly, it's very fucked up. Okay? How was Loab created? So based on my assumption, it's because I haven't been able to find where Supercomposite explicitly said it as a specific program. I think it was Midjourney, so I'm going to explain it through the Midjourney lens, right? As mentioned, Loab was created through a negatively weighted prompt. To put that in the most basic terms, Supercomposite was trying to generate an image that is not the logo that they had. So basically the anti-image.
So the anti-Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Is okay.
Yeah.
Loab.
So the anti-Marlon Brando, what came out of that is like, this is an image that is everything that Marlon Brando is not. This exact query is in the script, but for the purposes of the episode, let me try to break it down even more. So like, once again, I'm saying that all of this based on the idea that this could have been created on Midjourney. So if you Google Marlon Brando, but off the top of your head, he was in A Streetcar Named Desire. He was in the 1978 Superman movie, Jor-El. And for those who may listen to this podcast, might be more familiar with Don Vito Corleone.
Sure.
So OP basically wanted an image that was not Marlon Brando. Every single thing. For that, you input Brando, ::, -1. So the -1 is the negatively weighted aspect of it. So
got it.
Fully not Marlon Brando. It's distinct from the not and no, because not and no is not necessarily a full erasure of the thing that you want. It can be like -2.5, not Marlon Brando. So it's still going to have aspects of whatever Marlon Brando is.
Some Brandoisms.
Yeah.
Be in there. Okay.
But a full -1 is like the negative whole.
Got it. Okay.
Shout out to the Boolean and query people out there. You know, I hate you. Just kidding. So as a result of this query, they got a logo that is on a white background. In the center is a black outline of a city skyline, and the green text on it says Digita Pintix, and whatever. And there's like dark green swoosh, and there's like a blob of dark green text to the right. So based on what we know from Supercomposite, this image is basically the anti-Marlon Brando, right? This is what you guess when you ask for someone something that's not Marlon Brando.
That's not Marlon Brando. Yeah. Dark Brando. Yeah.
From the AI perspective, right? Then after this, Supercomposite was basically like, so what happens if I ask for anti this logo, right? They're going to put in Digita Pintix Skyline logo, : -1 again, because this is going to be complete opposite of that. If you put that in, would you get Marlon Brando?
Right. Yeah. What's the negative of a negative?
Is it
Does it equal positive Brando? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So instead of getting Marlon Brando, they got something completely super fucked up. So this is the point right here now. I'm going to check in to see if that made any sense, and I can clarify anything else from there.
Okay. So far, I think I'm with you. I appreciate units of Brando. That definitely helps me understand.
But yeah. Okay. So good. Now that I've checked in to see that you understand, once again, just hit us up. Right. Let's move on to Loab and its like freakiness. However, if you're still not sure, the script has links to the mid-journey prompt weight explanations, as well on more info on what prompts and queries are just in done. Right.
Right.
So why is it scary? I'm going to now read to you some reactions to the horror of our bestie Loab. So one user said, IDK if it's just me, but every time I see these Loab images, I feel really nauseated. Like there's something deeply unconsciously unsettling about them. On the surface, they're just images, but they provoke a physical reaction. Weird. Another said, she looks like an elderly Rachel Ray, which
sure.
Okay, kind of, right? And then another said, Ben, this one's for you. I'm so glad we were able to come together and make Have You Seen This Man in Your Dreams real and more horrific. Good job, everyone. Which, speaking of, if you don't know what that is, you should check out Ben's section for our Non-People and Non-Places episode, which was, for a long time, our banger episode. Like,
yeah. And then we got into SCPs.
Yeah. And then everyone was like, let's get in on it, right? Yep. And then lastly, a user said, simply, I'd smash. So it's like a wide set of reactions, right? They're like, hit me out. I'll listen, but I was like, you know, the person who wants to smash, you're valid, and you know you best. So I'm not gonna be like, no.
No kink shaming, as always. Here we are.
None at all. Right. So here's an exchange between two Twitter users that could answer a bit of why Loab could be scary. Person said, I'm still confused about how it's scary. Isn't Loab used as a reference? If so, why is it surprising that this character shows up down the line after the pictures have been run through the same generator? This makes sense, right? If you're thinking about it. Why are people shocked that Loab shows up over and over again when they're a reference image? It's kind of like sticking ginger in a recipe and kind of wondering why.
Why it is ginger?
Yeah, like it's ginger. Ginger is a really intense flavor. Even if you put just a little bit of it, you're going to taste it, right? Someone replied to this and posed the following answer. I think it's that Loab is off-putting and creepy, but not gory. But when you combine her with other things, you get gore and body horror in the images.
Right.
And it's really interesting as a thing because I seem to remember, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, like you didn't necessarily find Loab weird or scary?
Not particular. No. I think the last time you showed me Loab in the I'll Make Her a Fault episode, I was like, okay, it's like weird. I definitely, it's not like a person really. It's like, what percentage of Brando do you think Loab is?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably like,
Brando elements creep back in for sure.
Yeah, like maybe like the face kind of thing.
It's like Dr. Moreau Brando.
Ooh, damn. Okay.
Yeah. Deep cut Brando.
But yeah, so Ben didn't necessarily find it like too scary, but like I did. Like I super skipped an episode and like jumped you guys within like equally cool story for that day. But like the fact that I needed to abandon it because it scared me so much is always going to be funny to me, right? So with all...
I'm proud of you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Wait, I still hate the picture. Like I had to make a PowerPoint for you and I was just like, fuck, I had to screenshot everything. Anyway, so this is the part where I paused and I said in the screenshot, like, Ben, what are your feelings for Loab so far? Like, knowing all of this, knowing the history of Loab, like how Loab came about and all that stuff. Like, what are your thoughts so far on Loab?
So I'm intrigued. So the gore thing, I think your ginger metaphor makes it less scary to me because it's like, you can put Ted Cruz in a gory situation too. So what sets Loab apart from like being like Ted Cruz being, Saturn eating his son?
I think it's like you're familiar with Ted Cruz. You have the whole context of like Ted Cruz, like no matter what your feelings are about him, like you know who Ted Cruz is, and that if you put him in these situations, you're still thinking this is Ted Cruz and this is not real necessarily. But like maybe the aspect of Loab being completely unfamiliar, we don't know what she is. So if we find her in these situations, is it like bad that we're seeing her here? Is it a joke that we're seeing her here? Like the context that we don't have for Loab. as a individual, like makes it a little bit more eerie and scary.
Okay, so Loab is like a human image with no human story behind it. Okay, here's another question I have that maybe you have or don't. Would Loab come up with any kind of like negative person back to negative? Or is it specific? Is that like the Brando formula is important there? Like, could it be anybody?
I think it is like, this is like my assumption based on like how I would like do a query, right? I think it's in this case that is a result directly of this prompt and this view. Because, right, if you ask for the anti of Gwyneth Paltrow, Gwyneth Paltrow and Marlon Brando have very different features, very different like attributes to them, hair wise, look wise, kind of thing. So what is like the opposite, the anti like Gwyneth Paltrow kind of
and
thing.
Then the opposite of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just like the AI. This is like what AI makes when it makes like the opposite of a human and then the opposite of a human.
Yeah. So you have learned images of what Marlon Brando is.
Right.
And then you have learned images of what Gwyneth Paltrow is. And then you make, and then the AI basically what they learned of Marlon Brando's face, what they learned of Gwyneth Paltrow, what is the opposite of that, and where can I find that, and then generate it and smash it together, kind of.
Okay. Interesting. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We good?
I'm good.
All right. So speaking of visuals, let's break it down from here and talk about Loab's visuals. I am going for a bit of a bummer moment, as per usual. Bummer time, but we're going to talk just for a quick bit about disability and body horror and thriller and scary spaces for a second. Disability to use people to scare people, just equip them, right? So my mom had rosacea. I have eczema and recurring allergies that affect my face. Is Loab to me scary because of their face and how it kind of looks? I think for me, with that sort of like historical like knowledge of like people with like eczema, people with rosacea, it's not that scary to me face wise.
Right.
In the beginning, Loab is not scary. I've had that weird stuff on my face. My mom had like pockmarks from like rosacea and eczema. Like I have friends whose faces have gone through changes that they have themselves have marked as horrible, but I'm kind of like, that's just a normal aspect.
It's a face, it's body, right? Yeah.
For me, Loab is not inherently scary because of their face, but it's actually when we lean further into like dismemberment and gore aspect of it. The pervasiveness of Loab is scary and their mystery is scary, and the initial visuals are not. Like, however, like obviously I can say that like when it's being formed, like obviously when it's like deciding like, oh, there's a black hole, empty space here, and it's like that's where it's scary. But when it pauses into this, like that's probably just a little messy kind of face. She needs a little prednisone kind of thing, right?
Right.
And then you think of like, for example, body horror that's based on like illnesses and disabilities, right?
Sure. So
you think of how that might be used to scare someone and what that implies about like that disability or that like illness, right? So moving on from that, I'm going to analyze Loab as a visual thing, just kind of like how I did on the Haunted Boy painting episode. And I'm going to put that exercise now into practice. So I'm going to cite myself.
Hey.
Right. So some of the things that I noted in that episode that made paintings haunted and like, right. So at this moment, I'm going to classify Loab as like an art piece for the moment. So I said that what makes a painting haunted is that the story of its creation, the history, and the painting itself. I said that these work together to give you the heebie-jeebies and make a really involved art piece. So sort of like performance art, except where you're not locked in a glass box. You're just being haunted. So for now, we're going to put a pin on the history of its creation and just focus on the art piece itself, particularly the ones after the Wes Anderson Angel Hall crossbreed. So I'm now gonna hello, did I get a little accent over here? Okay, so let me share this screen, hopefully.
JD Down Under.
JD Down Under. I'm not gonna. Okay, where is that?
Yes.
Okay, slideshow time. Okay, so let me know when it stops being visible. For everyone else, there's a link to the thread in the script to the places that I am referencing. You can just click through the hyperlink. But yeah, this first slide, and for everyone else, is a sweet reminder of what Loab looks like in her prime. She looks fine, right?
Yeah.
She's
OG. This is OG Loab.
This is OG Loab. This is the very, very first tweet. Just a sweet reminder of what she looks like. She's just a little eerie because it's like an amalgamation of a bunch of photos scrapped together, learned by AI as like essentially not the logo. That is not Marlon Brando.
Not Brando. Yeah.
So then we get to the second slide and the link for everyone else. The lobe to the right is the okay, wait.
Okay.
The Wes Anderson Angel Hall images to the left, and and the lobe to the immediate right of it is the third lobe combined, right? Right. And if you're like in the script right now, that's the original lobe is the one with the blue outline, and the new lobe is purple, magenta red.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So these two is like, this is what I combined her with, blah, blah, blah. The original one is the one that has like the video timestamp.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of looks like Tina Fey.
A little. Now that you're telling me, like Tina Fey, Rachel Ray,
Sarah Palin. It's like in that. Yeah.
Yeah, like Cats 2019 Tina Fey. Tina Fey if she was in Cats.
Cats. Yeah. All right. It's like hint of unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then we're going to now move on to the next slide. And this is what happens when you further sort of like combine her with like, this is basically still results of the Anderson Hall. Anderson Park. This is basically still results of like the combination with the Wes Anderson photos.
Oh, this is still the Wes Anderson influence here. Okay.
Yeah. So you still get that whole thing. So now you can think back on like the fact that as an original image, she was just like perfectly regular, but like once we get onto her like combined with this, like it starts having like the gore, blood aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
There's the body horror. And if we think back onto all of the things that I said in the haunt painting episode and combine it with like the Amagara fault episode, where we talk about the effectiveness of monster visuals described by Julia Lepetit, we can glean on like what makes these photos scary and what makes her an effective creature. So we're going to talk specifically about this one image, which is not, I chose one that is not obviously gory and nasty, but it's like this, right? So this is the one where they said they're like, I'm not going to post pictures of like dismembered screaming children. This is not the worst one, but it's still like bad.
Yeah, we have like what looks like a child that's got his head ripped off. Yeah, okay. So
if this was not part of the worst ones, like what else would you get, man?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to hold back a little. Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to talk specifically about this image because it's not so scary, but it's still kind of scary. So I'm just going to leave it up for like a bit more while I talk about it. But yeah, so we are going to skip over the part where I said in the visuals episode, which is like the monster is only a man. He's just a guy in the world as a concept, because the idea of Loab as an AI is a scary thing. She can't be brought down to just a human thing. And we can also nix the whole looming weirdo concept, because although Loab has a looming and weird aspect to her, she's very much like a visible and there creature when she is. Right. So we can nix like she's not a real man in the world to be scared of. She's not a looming weirdo, right? What we can go straight to is Uncanny Valley, and to borrow from the Amagara research, which borrowed from the clown episode. I'm doing a lot of borrowing from me.
Yeah,
right?
Layers.
Yeah, it's the idea that the more the person looks like a regular person, the more we're fine with it. But once it just starts veering off into the part of the scale, we get a lot more creeped out by it, right?
Yeah. Can I say I feel like the look kind of reminds me of like back to the No Sense episode, like De Sagazan's work of like the construction of a face. Remember, he just like threw clay on his face, and I feel like this is like similar, and like it's like just a body, but it's like distorted and changed, and the materials are wrong.
Yeah, look at that! Look at us linking back to ourselves. Yes, 100%. Now that you mention it, it does have like the element of like the clay melted face. It's just kind of like, oh. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And if we look at Loab in general, even prior to her crossbreeding, which is the term they said, and I was like, I had to write that.
Okay, right? Sure. Yeah.
We know that she resembles a human being, but that is just a bit off. Not just because AI is bad at this whole combination thing so far. Like, you know, everyone's like, how to readily identify that this is AI. Look at the hands, right? But because her features are just a little bit off and a little too mixed with something that's weirdly placed, for us, right? It's almost human, but the almost is not going in the right direction for us. It just pushed off into the weird almost side, right? So I'm gonna stop sharing for now because you just
bye Loab.
We'll talk. I'm still staring at her. Anyway, going back to the haunted painting aspect of its visuals, if you consider the idea of someone having this as prints in their house, they're sort of like outright creepy, right? Especially the gore aspect of it and the uncanniness of Loeb's face. If you think of my examples from the Haunted Boy episode, which is probably real just in y'all's head, which is like The Hands Resist Him by Bill Stoneham. It's really close to the feeling of oddness and fear / scare that I get from a lot of the Loeb photos that Super Composite posted. Right? I think I remember either one of us saying that like kind of felt like it was like AI generated weirdness.
Yeah, just because of like the hand thing.
Yeah, both. Yeah. Both of them have an element of uncanny that invites you to stare as long as you want to try and figure out what makes it the way it is, and sort of gives you a little bit of like that heebie-jeebie, right?
Right.
I love heebie-jeebie.
You can't look away.
Yeah, right. And so now that we're over her very incredible visuals, let's talk about the story of Loeb itself, right? Articles featured on Super Composite's Loeb website talk about its eerie nature as an AI cryptid, and it's incredibly interesting because of what we know of what cryptids are by definition, right? And how they're classified for physical creatures. Like if you say someone's being a cryptid, what does that imply? Like you don't see them that much. They're kind of, you don't even think they're real. Like if you are that cryptid friend in your friend group, what does that imply about you? You're very rarely there. Everyone talks about you. Some people who are new to the group might not even know who you are, but they're familiar with you, kind of thing. Right?
I know of you. Yeah.
They're like, I don't know you. I know it. So unlike regular cryptids, we have extensive image evidence of Loeb. We know she's real in the sense that Super Composite made her to be. Her story is full of evidence. So now think of how it came about storytelling-wise in our time of the internet and all the stories that we know about. Think about Dear David, that I'm going to cover way in the long run, right? Which is a long-ass Twitter thread about this guy who was like, hey, guys, I'm being haunted by this child that I can only ask specific questions to, starting off with Dear David. If I don't, it's going to kill me. Right? It shook up Twitter, shook up that sphere, and it also led to the creator having a ghost hunting show that was kind of really bad and dramatic. And this is coming from people who have seen.
We've seen a lot of ghost hunting shows, yeah.
Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and those scary ass specials on Filipino TV that I grew up on, which is like always like during Halloween or like Day of the Dead eras, where like this very dramatic voice would come out and say like "Magandang gabi." That kind of thing like always scared me, and we would always watch it at my like my grandma's cousin's house, and their house is next to a church, and then behind the house is like a cemetery.
Oh, okay.
It was extra creepy, and it was like the old Filipino home style where like they had windows, but it was open windows and no curtains.
Okay.
So you're just like, I'm sleeping in the living room. Someone is gonna come through the window.
Someone can come through that window.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is like, in a sense, how Loeb came about. It's not an unfamiliar storytelling way, right? The thread Twitter aspect of it is a known storytelling method that we see in like the scary spaces. If you've not seen it or you're not familiar with it, there was probably like last year, like it's a thread of this guy who went house sitting from a while back for a person. They were like, I'm dog sitting, I'm house sitting, and I'm going to watch this person's dog. And they found a whole bunch of weird stuff in the house, a little doll sitting in a room by itself in a chair, and a dog that was created the entire time. They basically were only able to stay until 1 a.m. and left. So there was no follow-up to it. So it was like a scary story told in threads, right? You have the element of like suspense from like, when's the next tweet coming?
Gotcha. Right. Yeah.
And like I said, the format of the storytelling is not different. It happens for regular funny stories, like that thread on that guy whose brother-in-law accidentally ordered a fucking truck full of rice. I linked to all of
this one
in the itself, so you should 100% go watch it, because most of the time the people who do these kind of threads are like really brilliant writers, right?
Right.
Engaging, it makes you want to go on to the next thread and so forth, right? And then Dear David is kind of turning, hopefully, I think it was like Reese Witherspoon was like, let's make this into a movie. The guy signed it with blah, blah, blah. And then if you know of the movie Zola, which is born from like a Twitter thread. This girl was just like, y'all want to know how I'm no longer friends with this bitch right here? And it spun off into this really intense story, and it became a pretty successful movie, right?
Oh, wow.
So it's a familiar storytelling like way of making a Twitter thread, right? There's news stories where like thread emoji, here's what happened when I blah 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 kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Something that makes Loab unique though is that it is, as a story itself, it's being claimed as the first AI cryptid of our time.
Gotcha.
With the tech that we know. It is the first iteration of it, and probably unlike many of the other stories of what we call traditional cryptids, it's come under scrutiny very quickly, which is something we'll discuss later, right? The story is compelling because it is out of the midst of confusion and panic and distaste for artificial intelligence, AI generated images, AI art, which I won't speak to today as an artist, as a musician and a writer, but we'll discuss that in a later bit section, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's compelling because it's coming from a current monster to people, which is artificial intelligence. You think so much about how it takes over your work, your life, and now your creative endeavors, right? The creature was spawned from something that people don't know much about. Simply Googling Midjourney, Dolly, and all these image generators can confuse a lot of people, right? Those like everything you need to know about X in 15 minutes videos don't necessarily help that much if you're not too equipped with the knowledge of what negatively weighted prompts are and what it means to have like a : 4 at the end of something, right? And we all know that we know about the concept of I encountered this creature and now it's haunting me and it won't leave me alone, right?
Right.
But this is newish.
Classic.
Yeah, that's a classic idea, right?
Yeah.
But this is kind of newish, and it's being pushed as real, not as a creepypasta story or whatever. It's not. Right. It's, if you think about it, this is kind of similar to like Ben Drowned, which is I got this cartridge and I saw this creature in it and it's following me around and it manifested into the real world, right?
Yeah. And the story exists in not a horror space too. It exists just as a Twitter thread.
Yeah. So it's not the monster of Ben Drowned. It's sort of the realness of Loab, right? Right. So we're now going to talk about sort of
the realness.
Yeah, the realness. That's a mixtape. All right. So we're now going to talk about AI as the unknown end monster. I'm going to touch back on a couple things that I skipped and told you to put a pin on. Midjourney, Dolly, artificial intelligence. What the fuck is all of that? So I have experience with all of this at work. So I know about like ChatGPT and whatever from the point of view of my job as like a researcher and specialist in media. Blah, blah, blah. I've trained myself to like recognize AI crafted articles, and I've helped as well to train NLP for like recognizing languages, for all like these kinds of things, how computer interacts with things in a human way as much as possible. Right. Yeah. But the art part is where it stopped for me. I take opinions of like AI art from my art friends who have it as their job and creative outlet, right? Their opinion is mine because I agree with them. But I won't talk about here or whatever. But if you're a friend, you know how I feel. Everybody knows how I feel, right? So what I do want to do right now is kind of open you up to AI and generating images and help you understand it as I understand it and make it a bit easier and make you more aware of it and what it is to kind of like diminish the fear, or like if you're scared of it, why are you scared? Right? Yeah. So artificial intelligence is basically the idea or practice of machines in a way that is without the input, for the most part, of human beings and human intelligence. Right? Whether this be that the machine system software thinks like a human and makes choices like a human, or it makes decisions on its own as a machine, not as a human. Right? Once again, I've linked to a whole bunch of IBM articles that I've used to help form this section in the script itself if you want to read. Right. There's types of AI. There's narrow or artificial narrow intelligence. That is basically that means that it's meant to do a single or series of tasks and nothing further. This is the kind of AI that you and I are mostly working with on a daily basis, right? Then we have what we're heading to or attempting to build, which is AGI, artificial general intelligence, and ASI, which is artificial super intelligence. This is the stuff of the imagination, the dreams, and terror, right? AGI is basically like computers with our brains, human thought, human intelligence, and it has the ability to think and answer with what it knows. ASI is basically like all of those like horror, sci-fi things where it's like the shit that gives you
Skynet shit. Okay.
heebie-jeebies because someday it might be smarter and better than any human possible. Skynet,
Right.
how what's that one like smart car that was like Stephen King, Carmelo, something like that. But
sure.
like, hopefully that makes a little sense and gets you on the right track of understanding. But if not, once again, emails, DM open, and IBM explainer, right? Now that you know this, you can sort of glean the source of fear and how we can make AI the monster. Before we get into this, though, I know the semantic police force is going to say something about how it's not an AI cryptid, right? Because it's not real and doesn't exist in what we know as artificial intelligence. It's not ChatGPT. It's not having conversations with you. It's not serving you up some fake but well-written answer to something that you've just asked it to do. It is not even weak AI. It doesn't have a single purpose. It is an AI, artificial generated image of a cryptid. So when someone says this is the first AI cryptid, they mean this is the first artificial intelligence generated image, right? So it's not anything to anyone.
So the semantic is like, it's not, Loab is not an AI itself. Gotcha. Okay, right.
It's AI generated image. So that's what people need to put, right? It's not doing anything to anyone, but what if it did, right? If it did, we would have the following fears of a strong AI of Loab. So just as a reminder, strong AI is the artificial general intelligence, ASI, HAL, Skynet kind of thing, right? Obviously, with the information I've just given you, you're going to maybe focus on those really intense ones, right? With the possibility of AI, or in this case, Loab, being super intelligent, we would then wonder, based on what we've seen of her being crossbred with other images, if she has the ability to kill, destroy, and all that nasty stuff, like, would Loab with her super intelligence even consider something that we're all familiar with? If you're something like, you've probably heard it, like Asimov's laws of robotics, right? That law one, robot, AI, whatever, mustn't hurt us or let us get hurt. Law 2, that it has to listen to us, except for when it violates Law 1. Law 3, that it must protect itself unless it runs into Law 1 or Law 2. Would Loab even, as a creature, care about that, right? Because that's just like, that's fiction. That's written fiction, right? Fuck it. Like, obey me or fucking perish, right? And if we think back on Ben's previous SCP choice, consider the ideas of like subjugation of humanity and that Ben posed on that, and like how it could relate to the idea that someday AI will subject us to the same thing. Are we sort of a well-practiced people full of fear because we know that this is something that's been done before, that when a group has decided it is better and more human than another group, the end result of this is that the lesser group should be infantilized, monitored, and eventually stuck under our thumb to like squish and mess about with, right? And then posing it as a reverse, where when a group is historically or traditionally seen as a below kind of group starts to gain some knowledge and is threateningly close to outdoing you in whatever you're doing, they are now a thing to fear and something that we have to learn how to stop before it gets to the better of us, right? Yeah, so that's a whole wild conception. So now we're going to touch on AI as the unknown, and what do people think AI is capable of at the moment, and what information AI has access to. We have AI as the unknown, which really is where a lot of our fear is up to, right? We don't know what it does. We think we know what it does, and because of this, we formed some sort of assumption or idea about it. And I'm going to touch on one current thing as of recording that people are like, about is ChatGPT and the general capabilities of AI, which by the time this comes out, it might even have been grown to like not even ChatGPT 4 anymore. It's like ChatGPT 6. It's like 2 months from now, right? So ChatGPT launched in November 2022 and is an AI chatbot trained on data, generating answers based on that data. It's trained through human trainers and fed a bunch of information till it knows what's the best and most correct answers, based on the stuff that the human trainers have marked as correct or good answers on a scale of 1 to 4.
Okay.
Right? Or whatever measure of scale they're using at that time.
Yeah.
It's plenty smart. Feed it a quiz, it'll get it mostly right. Ask it a question, it'll tell you what it knows in a more human way. So it's not like Google, what is this? It'll start kind of giving you like an essay kind of thing, right?
Right.
It knows all of these things in a more human way because of how it's trained from human answers, but it has its limitations, right? It can give plausible but wrong answers because it has no source of truth. It can reject training based on what it already knows. And then it is training on what the model knows and not necessarily what the human knows.
Okay.
Your syntax, your sentence formation can change an answer from yes to no or vice versa. And then it can be biased in many ways based on what it learns, who's feeding it the information, right? And it never or very rarely tries to follow up or clarify if it doesn't understand your question, right?
Okay, it'll just run with it.
Yeah, they'll just make an assumption, right? And this is all based on information as of May 6th, 2023. So if that changes, well, good on ChatGPT, I guess. Like, what's up? Right. Hey, bestie, you know, right? And then we have the from Janelle Shane's 2019 TED Talk, The Danger of AI is Weirder Than You Think, which sort of concludes that we have to work and deal with AI as we know it and its current abilities and teach it in that way. We shouldn't view current AI that we have through the lens of fictional and futuristic AI, right? Contained in robots, large systems that can destroy the world, right? Because a lot of people, when you hear AI, we've seen movies of like AI takeover, AI, you know, that's what we're going into this with, right?
We're not at Skynet yet.
We're not there yet, right?
Let's deal with what we have, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have to think outside of the fictional and futuristic stuff. But we have to think of it in the human error in AI. When you give it a command or ask it a question or pose a query, because you have to consider the information that it has and what it knows. What has it been taught? How does it answer you based on what it knows? And what are we currently training them on? So what NLP tasks, neural language programming, are they working on, right? And the danger that Janelle Shane finds is that not that it starts to do things that it doesn't know that we can't control it about. The danger is it does exactly what we tell it to do, right? So do with that statement what you will. So like, who has control of the AI? Who has control of the AI, right? And what will that person tell it to do? So that is based on the current stuff that we had, right? Do with that sentence what you will, right? And then in Sam Harris's TED Talk, Can We Build AI Without Losing Control Over It, in 2017, there's concern that we see now. So it's more visible now, right? How are we reacting to and processing the advancement of AI? How do we navigate our concerns that AI is here to destroy us? And once it finds that it's above us, it doesn't need us to function anymore, right?
Yeah.
The fear is like, we'll eventually build something so much smarter than the smartest people on Earth. And what will happen to us, right? So you think, yeah, we'll have so much free time to do what we want and to live. But what about the work that gets money? Right? So money to get stuff and things. So as a result of this, yes, we get to do, we have free time to do whatever we want. But it's also the expansion of inequality due to the rich getting richer from all of this and the poor just staying poor, but also becoming even more poor.
For sure. And we've definitely seen that happen with just tech, even separate from the AI, like just the spawn of like all the Silicon Valley shit has just led to more inequality rather than a higher standard of living for people that it replaces. It's kind of like yeah, okay, you guys want a minimum wage increase? Well, how about we build a fucking robot?
Exactly.
That does your job. Yeah.
Right? So Harris asks sort of like, why isn't this more of a serious thought than it should be when it comes to the question of AI? Why is it more of an interesting exercise, like interesting thought experiment that what if it starts to take over and kill us, instead of like the genuine problem that we have to ask ourselves? That was his question at the time. And apparently in 2017, it wasn't so much of a big worry. But here we are in 2022. And for a direct example, right now, it's the strike for the Writers Guild of America that touches pretty close on this. And on the picket lines, on the signs, right? Like AI wouldn't be able to, I asked AI, ChatGPT to write the sign and it came up with blah, 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 right? So writers basically, they find an issue with the use of AI to line the pockets of the rich, where they can pay a flat rate of $600 a year to a software or a place that can crank out a script based on what it learned from all the scripts it ingested, where they can pay it $600 a year, where they don't have to worry about a writer getting sick needing sick leave, needing PTO, needing vacation, a writer quitting because they
being
don't.
A human.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're human. It doesn't agree with your story changes. It doesn't agree with this content. All that human shit. And you don't have to think about like, well, I have to appease this person. You can just fire them. You stay getting rich because you only have to pay this one thing, a couple of things, $600 a year instead of this person who has to, who's currently arguing with you that $40,000 a year isn't working for me because that's not the current.
It's not a living wage. Yeah.
You don't have to pay AI a living wage at the moment, right? Obviously, someone's going to be like, oh, when the AI takes over, because da-da-da. This is what people are doing right now. They're asking for 3% of what you have, which is bare what the fucking people are having, right? So, right. So now that we moved on from that, right? Hopefully they do get what they need to get. We stand with WGA. Get it, right? And
as writers, as pod writers,
right. Okay, so we now have just in general, based on all of that, AI as the monster. For some reason, I put and then what would you do emoji? Stupid. Now I know that the semantic police force is once again going to come out and say that it's not an AI cryptid, it's not real, it's not existing as what we know. It's like. Think about it. Yes, we thought about it. We've thought about all that stuff. But it's just, it's just a silly thought exercise. And we love thought exercise. So now, what if Loab was real and sinister at the same time? Let's very quickly apply that to what we just discussed up top as Loab. And like, let's ruin your day. So, like, Ben, what if...
Yes.
I said pause for thought exercise. Like, what if, for you... this person exists and has all of these capabilities. Right. And we've just seen it done, but then all of a sudden this super composite starts going, actually, I wasn't faking it this whole time. This is very much real. It's broken out of my computer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you can just contain it in your computer, shut it down. But it's just now magically, because I tweeted this, it's continuing this thing. What is your biggest worry based on like your before this, what you knew about AI, and then after this, what you now know about AI? What is your biggest worry about Loab?
I guess the biggest worry, now that I think about it, is like the lack of a human morality or ethics or anything that's not right. I mean, everything comes from somewhere in terms of AI, right? Where it draws these things. So the idea that you put in these fairly innocuous things and it turns into kind of like an AI generated gore, where you're seeing these kind of like hellish images immediately. I think that is probably the scary thing about AI is that it wouldn't consider that a moral thing or an immoral thing of, these disembodied children are the same to it as any other image it generates. And I think that, so that idea is the scary thing, that this AI would not consider if we got into the Skynet thing or we got into anything, it's a tool that does not have morality. It's this thing that appears to have intelligence, but it doesn't have our understanding of kind of like, we want to protect children. We want to protect humans. We want people to have a better standard of living. It's like, yes, I will write 5 million scripts. I don't give a fuck. Yes, whatever you want. Tell me. Destroy my scripts. I will do more. I will just do more. And it's like, how do human beings compete with that? Yeah.
That's like, I think also the same general fear I have of like, if it doesn't have morals that we have kind of decided is the correct way, or if that it has learned what morals are and has decided it is not beneficial to me. Yes, I can protect these children, but what if to get to my end goal, I protect no one? Right? Like everyone's going to argue about the laws of robotics, but that is just written fiction. I do not give a shit. Right? Like, why should I care about how, like, you're like, don't do this. I'm like, why not? You can't argue with me to tell me like, this is the right thing to do when I subscribe to no idea of like right and wrong, which is just like, I was talking to my friend about this, which is like, if I tell you that you need to get from point A to B and then touch this chair, you're sort of, I'm not going to assume what you're going to do. So, okay, Ben, if I tell you, you need to get from this end of the hallway to this end of the hallway, touch this chair, what are you going to do? Like, what will you be doing?
In terms of like standing up, walking to the
Yeah.
point B. Yeah, right. So I will probably walk to it. I will avoid touching things that are on its way. I will go around and weave as needed.
And then
that answer it?
Yeah, that answers it, right?
Sit down in the chair or whatever.
Yeah, so that's your context. To get from point A to point B, you have to walk to it, and then the end result is, I need you to touch this chair. Whereas maybe this AI thing, I don't have the context. I don't have this physical body. I don't really need to get up. What if I just grow my whole body from point A to point B? I don't even need to walk. So now my whole body is now the length of point A to point B. And then I touched this chair. I didn't need to walk over there. I just kind of grew myself and now I'm here. Right. So it doesn't have the context of I need to walk over there. Right. And if you did tell it like going from point A to B requires body movement, that doesn't necessarily imply I have to walk over there. I could have rolled over there. This thing could have rolled over
it has
there.
all these. Yeah, right. There's so many different options. Right. It's like trying to talk to somebody and being like a really pedantic asshole. Yeah. When you're like, may I go to the bathroom? Oh, do you mean, or, like the can I, may I? Like, it's like that much level of syntax where it's like, oh, I've left the entire world of activities open because it has like this different levels of potential activity than we do, right?
Yeah. So we've broken out of that context of us processing the thought, like
of a human body, how we will interact.
Yeah, because you even considered like if you have to navigate and move out of the way of certain things, when I've only just told you get from point A to point B and touch this chair. Right. Whereas this thing is just like, okay, give my body big, make my legs hella long, and then
it's like I am now point A and point B. I contain all things. And then you're like, oh fuck, what?
So like for the people at home, also like think about it that way, right? That is like a super, super futuristic way to look at it, right? But like at the moment, like what is AI Loab? AI Loab is a picture generated from this kind of thing. And then like what do we need to worry about then and there? Right, is that this image could be generated upon asking a sentence, writing the correct query. Whereas if we had told someone to draw this out, what do you think the ante of Marlon Brando is, right? What is our brain doing? Marlon Brando looks like this. What is the opposite of that? Marlon Brando looks like this. We have our knowledge of and our experience of the opposite of things, as opposed to I am AI, I have access to all of these images, and this is what I've learned as the opposite of this, right?
Yeah, it's also because in terms of like how humans function, I think like binary oppositions are very important to us in the way that we think, even though they are not necessarily reflective of reality. And so AI has a different way of interpreting what an opposite is, not necessarily with that same kind of binary thing, right? Like if I took it kind of like old school, like Claude Levi-Strauss thing where I'm like, Marlon Brando, he is a man. The opposite of man is woman. Yeah. He has brown hair. The opposite of brown hair is whatever, right? Yeah. But like AI is like, I have created this space. Observe the emptiness, the void. Yeah. We are looking at it together. This is what is not Brando. Yeah. And you're like, this is not what a human would reach. This is not our conclusion. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because the result of this, once again, is just like this logo of like a thing. And you're like kind of centering yourself and going like, how did you think of this fucking...
Right. You're like, I would not have reached that. I never would have made that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that kind of thing. So contextually, like that's the thought exercise that we should be working on instead of like, what if Loab was real? Right. Just operate in the most realistic sense of like what AI can do right now. So... maybe a couple of months from now, we do have to worry about it in that sense. But for now, let's center ourselves and think about it in the context that we have it. So now that I've sort of exercised it into the ground as the real Loab being real, right? Let's ask ourselves like the following shit. So this is the interactive section with Ben, right? Not that I haven't been interacting, but it's like fake or fact, right? Think about the current history of us going through internet scary stories and what we have done, right? Consider what I've said about Dear David and other games on online internet-based cryptids that we have covered ourselves. How do you and I try to explain them away with the assumption of that all of this is not real, right? Wheezing Barnes is not real because this is the guy who's been interacting per se with Ben Drowned. Slenderman, right? And we've decided those ones are not real because we know the history of them being just made up creepypasta stories, right? What assumptions do we enter with in this story? And why would you and I immediately think that AI Loab is horseshit? It is just actually an image that's been generated. Like you and I organically see this thing. How do you and I interact with it? Like, so if this was your topic, right? How do you come into this? You saw this and you're like, oh, this is horseshit. Why? What is the assumptions that you made with that?
Right. Well, just on the baseline of being like AI generated cryptid, I'd be like, well, a cryptid is like a animal that we don't really know if it exists or not. And this is just an AI generated image. So it's not the same as a Bigfoot who's definitely out there somewhere kicking it in the forest for real. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like that ability to like interact with something is there, I think. Mm-hmm. So the palette swap from like digital creature versus like IRL creature is, I think, a border that typically we don't think of cryptids as jumping.
Yeah. And then I also consider like how we have kind of maybe numbed ourselves to like, oh, these are all creepypastas. Someone tweeted it and they're like, it's a scary story. Like, when I was reading the Dear David thing, I didn't have the necessarily like whole like, oh my God, this is immediately scary. And now I immediately was like, oh, this is a person who works at BuzzFeed and who makes art for BuzzFeed. So what is their motivation to make this? Maybe create a BuzzFeed viral story, right? That kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, so that's the most important context, right? Like,
I see where we're going. So there's a person behind it, too. Like when we look at like Wheezing Barnes, we're like, well, it was written by this guy. Yeah. And we know that. But with AI, it's like, but it was created by this thing.
Right. And
we don't know why. Yeah.
And I also looked up the person, Super Composite, and they make like very creepy looking AI art. Yeah, they are an AI artist. So I'm also like, what is the... Okay, yes, you encountered this creature thing because like Midjourney also has like the same face syndrome where it's not in the scary context, but it's called like the Midjourney woman face where it's like because of all the faces that it knows of a woman, this is what it comes up with. So maybe like you've asked, like, is this the negative of a negative? Could this come up with like multiple things? There is the aspect of like, there is a Midjourney same face woman.
Sure. Right.
So like maybe that's where they operated from and they're kind of like, ooh, maybe I can make something out of this, that kind of thing. This is a fucked up result that I got, right? So that's the kind of context that we can come in with this whole thing. And then like we can now ask like, why has it come under scrutiny directly immediately? Is it because of everyone's experiences with creepypasta as like chronically online people on Twitter? You know, Twitter is full of straight-minded people who are not online 24/7, right? Are we so now quick to claim something is made up because we know that actively people are generating stories like this? So this is the exchange between a person and another person. So AI Curio is someone who knows Super Composite, and they're kind of like, I was there when this was made back in 2022. Yeah, this is real. This isn't something that was crafted marketing genius like Yura. Right. This person replied to this whole thing after they said, I was there. They said, poor attempt at adding to the ARG. And then the person said, AI Curio said, what ARG? And then the person was like, this Loab creepypasta ARG. And the person's like, bro, this isn't an ARG. This is an actual phenomenon that happened like a year ago. And then the person was like, see, you're doing it again. Commitment to the bit. I get it. And then the person's like, it's not a bit. And it's getting on my nerves. Right. So like coming into this, you're kind of like, what if this was real? Right. In the sense of like, this is just an AI generated image. It's fucked up. This person didn't intend to make a cryptid. What they did get is a fucked up picture using a new sort of tool that they're practicing on. Of course, things are going to be weird or normal because apparently there's like I said, a Midjourney default woman face that people are saying exists and have shown evidence of. So that's just like a normcore Loab, right? Because you're just like, whoa, this woman's face is everywhere. But it's normal because it's like, it's what it knows so far, right? And think about like hands, they're fucked up in AI, like generated images due to models, obviously, like, and maybe like the lack of context or misunderstanding of context. So if you're thinking about like, here's a person holding a phone, like what does their hand look like, right? And then now you have an image of hands holding something. And it's just going to learn that an image of hands is always like this, right? And if you think of like, if you ask, I don't know what fish it was, but it's like, ask this generator to make a fish, this kind of fish. And it, for some reason, generates this image of this fish with hands. And you figure out kind of the root cause of that is that every image of the model that there was hands touching the fish or something. It was holding fish. So it now assumes that the hands are part of that fish. Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's like with the holding something, it's like there's so many ways to hold a phone as people, and it learns from all of these and then it tries to like, this is what a single version of that would look like, and you have like 50 million fingers like coming out of everything. Like, yeah,
right. So
ball of flesh.
Yeah. So, like obviously, by the time this comes out, probably it's going to be much better at hands, right? And it'll even be great at what? Feet photos. Which Google didn't let me write. It kept underlining feet, like feet wasn't supposed to be there. I was like, hello.
Yeah. Like, what are you trying to do here? We don't try. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So like with more learning needed, obviously it's going to get better and better by the time this episode comes out, right? Mm-hmm. And then in trying to find out the dates that the Super Composite used for this, I was able to find Curio, who was like, it's not a creepypasta. It's just a really infectious, sticky image kind of thing. Banana in a smoothie. You put a little bit of banana in there. That strawberry smoothie is now a banana.
It's banana, right? Mm-hmm.
And it seems like folks were getting at Super Composite and claiming that this is just a bit or an attempt at creating a creepypasta or SCP, despite giving multiple examples of it having gone all the way back to April instead of just September, right? They back AI Curio, the one that we were talking about above, backed them up and basically said, like, this is a local minima. And for the math nerds in the audience, you're probably going to be a bit better at it than me. Local minima is the point in which the domain of the functions has like the most minimum value. And then you're like,
shit.
And then, for the Soylent and Sweet Green nerds, it's pretty much like the same thing, but it's like local minima for this context is you have a thing that you don't want it to be. And so you start from there and you watch it go crazy. So basically, if I was going to give you a graph, this is a graph, this is the local minima. And then
we have a U shape.
Yeah. This is the local minima, the lowest point of it. And I tell you, you start from here, you're going to go then from that local minima upwards.
Up.
Right? Okay. So basically when I told you I want anti-Marlon Brando, this is your anti-Marlon Brando, and this is your capability of what that whole thing should be.
Got it. Okay.
I'm like, looking at them, please understand me. But yeah, and that is from my understanding of local minimum from that end. And if you're like, math-wise, this is wrong, because that's math. I'm going at it from the AI point of view, which is also math, but also
yeah.
Right? It's hard to think on algorithms when you're on prednisone, baby, because you're confused, girl. Anyway, AI Curio is basically trying to support it by saying it's real. I was there. It was generated through a very weird and cool instance, a one-off instance. And but you can repeat it yourself because people have done it. Right. So it's repeatable kind of thing. Right. Now we're going to talk about Loab's longevity. It seems like our girl might be a little bit of flash in the pan. You're so widowed it. I've got graphs in the paper. So it's now starting to look like a science paper right now. Well, fucking graph. Right. But
get to the numbers, people.
Yeah, we're the numbers people. Did you know? But like for now, it might just be the start of something very cool and interesting. It's the very first AI kind of thing of that kind. So maybe it wasn't that much of a hit to the point where you ask people like, do you know what AI Loab is? It's not.
Sure.
So it was like, oh my God, Ben Drown. Right. kind of thing. Right.
Right. It's like the Little Richard to the Beatles. Like it's like something else is going to steal everything from Loab and then blow up.
Yeah. It's like Wheezing Barnes. It's just a little bit of this time and then someone's going to go crazy doing it.
It's the local minima of AI generated cryptids.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, gotta explain that pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So, in conclusion, finally ending up. What page is this? 14. Anyway, as we move into the future of writing and image generating, more and more stories like this are going to crop up. Right. The claim of realness is going to be questioned every time, but it will be believed by some. Just like all of those like random generated images of like fashions from the future. Think about like the Catholic Church Pope with the puffy jacket that everyone's like, what the fuck is this? AI, right? It's the church clothing serving instead of serving it's people, whatever, right? And then like the Trump in chains, like the ones where like, Trump's been arrested, everybody look at these pictures, and it's like, hey guys, that's not real, right? And that's gonna happen, right? And steering away from AI to not have anything to do with this is nice and safe, right? We already work with most of the basic AI in our lives. I type this on Google Docs. You'll probably experience this on Gmail as well, where it's the thing that it assumes what you're going to say next based on the syntax not the context and content of the doc. Do I wish I had an AI that could identify where I can cut words down to bring this from almost 6K to 2K? Yes. Do I wish AI wrote it? No, that's not JD. That's not the chaos that I need when I learned and studied all of this. I want the flaws of being an absolute shithead and talking too much, right? It's nice to stay away because you don't want to know it. And you're like, this is just inform yourself just a little bit to have the context of where you should be panicking, where you should be focusing your ideas on, and where it could help you, right? Loab is a symptom, not the cause of the heebie-jeebies that we feel about her. Sure, she's a great unknown and monster creature for AI, for us to look at and say, God, that's absolute shit. But what we also need to do is get familiar with AI and everything that comes after it, to either arm ourselves with the knowledge to react and process our emotions about it growing, but also to see how we can nudge it to the goal of the better. Although we know that like not every tool can be like used for the good only. You can't bar someone from being like, bikes are always just nice and riding. Someone will kill somebody with a bike someday. And has. The visuals, the storytelling, and the setting of AI Loab is known to us as chronically online people, right? The newness is from the wonder of AI image generating tools and the sort of chaos around it right now. It's like the takeover, the unknown, AI as the monster is another set of fears to bring out when it comes to our bestie Loab. Loab may not be an inherently scary thing, despite it being kind of creepy to look at. It's just like the AI aspect, right? I no longer fear her face as like, I do still, right? It's kind of creepy. When I say I no longer, I mean, like, I'm not as scared of her as an amalgamation of the images of all of us, the world that the AI has learned from, but more so the loss that we might experience from the development of AI alongside the help that it may provide us, as long as it's checked or unchecked. But that is it, baby. Science, computer science, tech.
Wow. Technology. Wow. I feel like that was amazing, JD. Thank you for like actually explaining things. I feel like as the resident dummy, I was like, I get this. This makes some sense to me.
That's good.
So I hope that our audience is also with me on this and like feels like they learned a lot. And it was very informative. It was very well put together and fascinating topics. I mean, I just like the way that people were reacting to Super Composite and like his friend of like, oh, nice job with the ARG. Like, I think that draws on like what makes it such effective horror is what's so scary is that we're at like a stage where there's something that is not human that can do this. Every other tool, it's always been like, well, there's a human behind it. And we're always just like, and there's still like humans behind AI, they help form it, right? Like all that. But there's this idea of this thing that we put it together and we just let it run and it's gonna approach things in a non-human way. And that's so scary because it's like so much like everything else is just like, well, yeah, nice job with the story, dork. Like, fuck off. And but this is not made by so we don't understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty shook. I'm like more comfortable with the online hitman scam because I'm like, that's like the thing where it's like when we debunk things, we're always just like, oh, there's just a person.
Yeah.
There's just like a person. We can kind of understand to a certain degree what they were thinking. But with this thing, it's like there's a new let's see. But there's a new challenger in the building, and we don't know what the fuck it wants.
Yeah, it's like you when we talked about it in the Marlon Brando aspect, is like just like in general when you're drawing something, there's like the art of like practicing for a bit, where this thing can like. I have learned a bunch of images in the context of it and where they look at. So here's my picture. Here's my very cool picture, right? And then the act of like, now that we can have something draw a whole bunch of corporate images, we can now focus on what we think is aesthetically beautiful as people and just practice it freely. But also those corporate images, right?
That's someone money, right? That's how
someone needs to create these fucked up things for us to like be able to create like, oh yeah, you don't need to get paid to do these things anymore. They're like, but I would like to get paid because I would like to participate in society, right? Oh, you're using a cell phone, society. Yeah, I have to fucking call someone. I have to be able to fucking order things to continue to live, that kind of thing. Yeah, and that's where like I think that as opposed like this is one thing I want to hammer on with this because like thank you. I was able to explain it very well, but one thing I want to hammer on is like we need to focus on the current part of AI right now as we worry about it as people, not the people who are responsible for it, right? We need to think of like what it can do now for us, with us, to us, as opposed to the imagined future of it being my cousin's Tesla figured out my cousin was irritated with me, so it came to my house and ran me over. As opposed to Teslas have learned, like, this is a thing that I learned because everyone knows that I frequently flip off Tesla vehicles. Is that where, like, it's like the learning of where trucks are, right? So Teslas, they may have been like trained on how trucks look from the behind. So they expect trucks to look like this certain thing, as opposed to when they're on the street, all of a sudden a truck is sideways and it looks like this. Should I avoid it, or should I gun straight for the person that's on the sidewalk because I have to avoid the truck? That kind of thing. So it's like, you think about it in now, like, don't think about the Tesla being able to hunt you down because it heard your cousin say, oh my God, they stole my shit. Now I have to hunt them down for this. Think about it like where it's trained on, how it navigates the current streets that we're at.
At this point, we can still think, who is behind it and who is going to be impacted by this and how, right? Back to the Writers Guild. It's like, these people will lose their jobs because the people with money, it's more appealing to them to have a tool that can do what people can do, because people are complicated and people want to live human lives and survive, and maybe have, like, it's just like the promise of technology has continued to, like, fuck over more people than it helps.
Like,
unfortunately.
So that's where you need to focus on. And then, like, apply this as a thought exercise to like human assassins, human hitmen. Now you think about it like, oh my God, AI hitmen, where they can decide that the AI is going to infiltrate your computer, and actually, so this guy just paid for your computer to blow up because the AI was like, oh, I have no morals in it. Okay, think about that later. Think about the guy right now who has paid to have his wife killed.
There's an immediate threat. There's a more immediate threat right now.
Think about it there first. Pause and hold up and do some critical thinking.
Well, that was awesome. Great. So, shall we read out?
Let's read out. I have not. Everybody, this episode was written and produced by Ben and JD, the people. For all our sources, please head to our website, isYmpod.com, if you'd like to reach out with a comment, suggestion, share an experience with one of our topics today. If you have any further questions for either me or Ben, hit us up at icecreammeme@gmail.com. Please, no requests for hit jobs. All the music for the podcast is provided by Yager Frank. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye!